Hello Mountainboard community, my name is Jon Diurba and I'm going to be doing an unboxing of the MBS Pro 100 Tom Kirkman 2. Let's first take a look at the box. You can see it says the MBS Pro 100 deck, TK2, stands for Tom Kirkman 2. The first thing you're going to need is a razor blade, and you can open the box any way that you want, but I found this to be the easiest way. Flip the box over, cut both sides, and then fold the flaps up. Once the flaps are up, you can push the product through to the other side and then discard the box however you feel fit. I prefer recycling. The nice thing about MBS is that everything you need is in the box. You have the board, the trucks, the wheels, the bindings, all the parts that you need, including tools. Now I'm sure you're more interested about the deck, so let's take a look at that. The TK2 deck is both beautiful in its form and in its function. Its stiffer deck was inspired by Tom Kirkman's writing, and its graphics were inspired by Tom Kirkman's dreams, brought to life by Dan Wilson. As a stickler who sticks less, the first thing that I do whenever I get a board is remove any unwanted stickers, such as barcodes or warnings. Make sure you read the warnings first, but I just feel like the board looks a little bit better. The thing that I found to work best when removing these stickers, especially the warning sticker, is to first remove the plastic protective cover of the warning sticker, and then saturate it with something such as nail polish, which has acetone which can remove the adhesive. Now that all the unnecessary stickers have been removed, we're left with a beautiful board. Now the question will arise, is this board right for me? Without even knowing you, without even looking at you, without even knowing your experience, I'm going to tell you yes, this is the right board for you. Now in all reality, is that really the case? Well, I'd hope so, because this is the best board in my opinion that's on the market. If you're looking for a board with a 100 centimeter length, then this is definitely the board for you. I know a lot of riders that like to ride 95s, which is perfectly fine, but I enjoy the stability that I get out of a Pro 100 board. Also, this is the stiffest deck on the market, which means that if you like to drop stair sets, like I do, if you like to hit big jumps, like I do, or if you like to just ride around and have something solid under your feet, again, this is the best board for you. Alright, I think it's about time that I step off of my soapbox, so let's go ahead and move forward and take a look at the trucks. The trucks that the TK2 come with are the Matrix Pro trucks. And if you've used MBS trucks before, you'll know that these are the best ones that you can get. When you open the box, you get one truck per box, and all it comes with is the box and a little bit of styrofoam. Again, recycle. When you pull the truck out of its package, you'll notice that every part that you need is already attached to the truck, which makes it very convenient whenever it comes to building and unpackaging these boards. If you're unfamiliar with this product, I recommend going to MBS's website and reading up on it. But what you will notice is that it has an aluminum hanger, and it uses MBS's orange egg shocks inside of the springs, which I feel can be used for any riding style. In general, these are strong, rugged, stylish trucks. If you're looking for the best truck on the market, this board has it. And anybody that's been in the industry for any length of time knows that this is a huge improvement from years past. And I'm very pleased to say that I ride on these trucks. Now moving on to the bindings. The MBS F4 bindings, what a product. I absolutely love these bindings. From years past, it is a huge improvement. Old bindings used to give you pains on your feet, these ones don't. Old bindings had weaker parts, these ones don't have that. My pants used to get caught up on the ladder straps, these ones, they don't. I absolutely love this product, and if you're looking for a good binding, these are the ones to get. The only thing in relation to the bindings about this board that I would change is I would probably get some heel straps, and that's just for doing certain tricks. Mountain boarding wouldn't be possible without the wheels, so let's take a look at the wheels. They come with the Rockstar Pro aluminum hubs in black with T1 treads, and I'm a big fan of the T1 treads. I have nothing against the T3 treads, but for me and my style of riding, the T1 treads are the best choice, and I'm really glad that they went with them. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at these wheels up close, now's your opportunity. What I really like about the way they come is that the hubs are already put onto the wheels, the inner tubes are already inflated to about 20 psi, and there's no additional work required, because putting hubs onto wheels is probably my worst nightmare. And now for the last and probably most boring part before the big build, the parts bag. When we first open the bag, we're greeted by some rather important parts, such as the bearings to allow the wheels to spin, the crescent wrench to put the wheels on, and the Allen wrenches to allow us to put the rest of the parts on. There's also some information and documentation inside that bag that I think most of us should probably read over. So because these pamphlets are pretty important, I'm going to give you this opportunity to take a look at them so that way you can say, I've at least looked at them. And that's one step in the right direction, because the very next part that we're going into is building the board. I'm going to show you how to build the board from the ground up, so that way hopefully I can relieve some questions that a lot of you may have. And just as a disclaimer, this is the way that I put my mountain boards together. You don't have to do this, but I found this to work out best, and it's definitely some best practices that a lot of people should follow when building boards. With all of these parts and tools in front of us, there's definitely a lot going on, so I'm hoping this will help you out. The first place that I start is with the trucks, and the reason I start with the trucks and not the bindings is because it's harder to get the tools in place when the bindings are already mounted on the board. To follow the norm, place the trucks onto the board the way that I have, and insert the bolts through the top. Once the bolts have been inserted, finger tighten the nuts until you reach the nylon locking insert. Once you've reached that insert, then you're going to have to use a crescent wrench to tighten it the rest of the way down. Adjust your crescent wrench and start tightening the bolts down. Once you've gotten all of them snug, make sure you follow a specific pattern for tightening. The pattern that I use is a crisscross pattern. What this does is it allows the truck to become centered without damaging the deck. If you adjust one side or the top or the bottom, then what could occur is you could damage your deck or your trucks will be out of alignment. Okay, repeat that step on the other side, and let's move over to the wheels so that way they're ready to be put onto the trucks that we just mounted. Sometimes placing the bearings into the hubs can be a real challenge. Other times they go in really easily. It just depends on the angle that they enter the hub. If you do it just right, it's easy. If you're off a little bit, it'll be a challenge. Once you have placed the bearings into all 4 wheels, you can loosen up the axle nut and place your wheel onto the truck. I prefer to have my logo facing out and my valve stem facing out. If you grind rails, that might be a good idea. If you lay your board sideways in the dirt, you may want to have your valve stems facing into your board, so that way you don't release pressure from your wheels. When I put my wheels on the axle, I tighten up the axle nut completely to make sure that the bearings are seated properly in the hub. I then rotate the wheel around to ensure proper seating, but you'll notice that the wheel won't spin. I then loosen about 1/4 to 1/2 of a turn to make sure that the wheel spins freely. Once it does that, I know that the bearing is seated properly, and I know that the wheel is ready to be ridden on. As you ride your mountain board, things will loosen, and it's always a good practice to make sure everything's nice and tight. One thing that you won't necessarily notice while you're riding is that if your wheel moves side to side, that is a very, very bad thing, and I'd recommend that you take a look at that, and if need be, tighten up the axle nut. If you have all 4 of your wheels mounted onto your trucks and everything is nice and tight but still spinning freely, let's move on to the next step, the bindings. If you're mounting bindings, I'm assuming that the bindings that you have are new. Sometimes they're a little bit tight and you might want to just bend them around a little bit so that way the first time that you use them, they fit properly onto your feet. When mounting a binding, you should separate the ladder strap from the ankle strap, allowing you to more easily mount the binding. Make sure you start those bolts off by finger threading them to make sure nothing's cross-threaded. Otherwise, you'll irreversibly ruin your mountain board. I have spent a lot of time figuring out how I like my bindings to feel, and for each person it's going to be different. So what I'd recommend is put it in an area that you think will fit best, ride it around, and then change it up a little bit. That way you can make sure you have the best fitting binding that you can possibly have when riding. Once you have placed the binding where you want it to be and you have finger threaded the bolts, the next thing you need to do is tighten down the bindings, and you should do that by going back and forth from bolt to bolt to make sure they are tightened evenly. That way you don't damage the binding or the deck. Last but not least, you need to adjust the tension of your truck springs. What I like to do at first is tighten them down until the threading is just below the surface of the deck. Once that is done, I normally place the board on a flat surface, push it forward, and then adjust the tension of those springs to make sure the board goes in a straight path. Once you're done with this step, you should have a complete mountain board ready to ride. Of course, if you didn't just buy a Tom Kirkman 2, there's some things that you might want to consider with the mountain board that you currently have. Starting from the ground up, the wheels. It's important to have the right tire pressure. As I said earlier, this board comes with about 20 psi in it, and where I normally ride my board is 80 psi. So depending on if you want to go fast, if you want to slow down, you can adjust the tire pressure for that purpose. If your bearings aren't spinning just right, it may be a good idea to replace your bearings. I mean, come on, this is what allows you to go forward on your mountain board, and if I can't go forward the way I want to go forward, I'm going to replace that part, as well as the spring. When you land, you're always going to be a little bit heavier on your heels, and what you'll find is that your board is going to wear out the heel side spring a lot faster than the toe side. If you want to get by without spending the extra couple bucks, then you can flip the toe and heel side springs, or you can adjust the tension. But what it really comes down to is that you're going to want to replace those springs for your safety and your ability to do the tricks or the turns the way that they're meant to be done. Some additional things with the trucks is that if your hanger is snapped or broken or damaged, that could put you in the hospital pretty quick. So I'd recommend looking over everything, making sure all your bolts are nice and tight. If your bolts were loose connecting your truck to your board, you could have worn out those holes and you'll never be able to tighten it up the way it's supposed to be. So what I might recommend to you, do a complete overview of your board, see what needs to be adjusted. If your bindings are worn, take a look at your ladder straps. The last thing you want to do is to land a trick, have your ladder strap break, and then hit your head off the ground just because you didn't replace a small part. So if you've just purchased a TK2, or if you're about to, you're in for a treat. It's an amazing board. And if you haven't or haven't yet, take a look at your board and see what parts or maintenance you might need to do to it. If you have any questions, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching.